All right, welcome back to Served. It is my pleasure to introduce our friend Eric Butorac with a new title for the first time on this show. Tournament Director of the U.S. Open. Eric, how does that feel when you hear that?
It feels pretty good. Not quite sure how to feel about it exactly. I guess I was reminded by a friend recently that I kind of forgot about that this was a goal of mine at some point. I don't actually remember that. I'm more of a live in the moment kind of person. I did a TED talk once on trying to set small goals, so I don't remember this comment, but he said I did say it. Um, it's super exciting. I just got to share the news with our greater US Open team, and I shared a point that I thought when I retired from playing professional tennis that would be the most exciting thing I got to do professionally, and really would never have imagined that there would be something equally or maybe even more fulfilling than being able to play 40 Grand Slams. And today it's kind of embarks on another continuation of that path, but super honored to get the role.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been well deserved. I know we have a pretty easy relationship. I think we deal, in a pretty straightforward manner with each other. But you're someone I always know that if I text, I'll get a text back. If I have a question, I'll get an honest answer. You'll tell me if you can do something. You'll tell me if something's not possible. I've always appreciated that. I think that's your reputation inside of the sport. Even if it's something like, and I think this was, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, but even the mixed doubles this year was a lightning rod of a topic for a while, and then it worked on, in my opinion, on a spectacular level. You're respectful, you're fair, you're balanced, but then it seems like you're also not scared to take a shot, right? And throw the ball downfield. How much of the last 10 years has been an adjustment? Do you feel like you settled into your role pretty easily, or has it kind of been an adjustment over the last 10 years that's gotten to this point?
Settling into the role easily, no. There's no playbook when you leave the tennis court and walk into an office. No one tells you how to read a budget report. No one teaches you how to CC someone properly on an email. And a lot of that was a lot of failings and tripping over my own feet in those early years. I hope that the honesty or trying to just be a good human can get you through those points. And I have a lot of people to thank at the Open, most notably Stacy, but many others as well who've stuck with me over the years and kind of showed me how to try to do this job well. I guess when it comes to taking a big swing or even just the honesty with you, I love tennis, right? I love the sport. It's afforded me opportunities that I'm so grateful for. And so I think when you come at this stuff from a place of, I just want the US Open to be better. I want it to be a better event. I love sitting in the after action report where we went through 585 line items of things we want to do better next year. Because I see all those things and I want to be a part of making every one of those million fans who comes through the door or another, millions more who watch it at home have a really special experience. So when you come at it from that, I think it's a little easier to be honest and candid and try to do that as much as I can.
I would say I'd say too that it's easy to say, but your actions speak volumes. I feel like people don't necessarily know this about you. You were a really good doubles player, but you didn't play much singles. And I always thought that you got a lot of heat from doubles players over the mixed format. But the response was, look, this is being done in the service of tennis, in the service of the event, in the service of tennis fans. This was not in your best interest necessarily as a former doubles player. And I think the fact that you were adamant of, look, I'm sorry that this may be costing some doubles players, but this is what we need to do for the betterment of the sport is something tennis could use a lot more of. Let me ask you a quick question. There are cameras, of course, on the courts. There are not cameras necessarily in all of the back rooms and in the boardrooms. What's a tournament director do? Other than argue with agents about court assignments, like what are we missing here? What's the job exactly?
Yeah, that's a good question. It certainly varies, and I've been lucky to have a front row seat of everything that Stacy does for the last 9 years, and being right by her side and watching how she handles the day-to-day minutia of meetings with different parts of the team throughout the day, of making the schedule, which you made a nod to, which is super important. I love being in the scheduling room. I love trying to look at that puzzle and figure out how can we put on the best product for the fans that balances player fairness, what fans want to see, not only in Arthur Ashe Stadium, but out on court 14, versus who needs a certain player to play early because they're going to be on in Tokyo versus someone who needs to be later because they need to be in Australia, and really figure out how to make that puzzle work every single day. I love that aspect of it, and that's a big part of the role. And then there's also some really big stuff that comes in, and I've watched Stacey navigate the COVID era, Serena's retirement, working with me on the mixed doubles reimagined format. It's a ton of communication. It's a lot of being available, as Andy said earlier. So it's a big responsibility, and one that I won't take lightly.
So something I want to read to you, Eric. You've mentioned Stacey a couple times this interview already, and for those who don't know, we're talking about Stacey Alister, who was the tournament director. She texted me this morning. She said, "Good morning, Andy. I want you to know how proud I am of Eric to be our next U.S. Open tournament director. My quote in our release is 100% my words and no comms teams involved. He's an amazing person, industry leader, and a wonderful husband and father." He said, or she said, "Stacey, former U.S. Open tournament director. How does that make you feel from someone who has largely been a mentor to you?"
Yeah, when you work for someone for a decade, and especially the career that I had, I owe her so much. But mostly just the patience. The constant trippings over my own feet as I tried to get things done or push new initiatives, to kind of say either slow down and have you thought about this, or hey, maybe you should consider doing it this way, or go, keep pressing. This is going to be uncomfortable, but keep going. Just the endless amounts of guidance and support, and I know that won't end, even though that she's technically no longer the TD. She'll be a short phone call away.
So I know this is probably a lot to think about and take on, but I assume you're not someone who's normally short with thorough thought. As you look forward with this job, what is a part of it that stresses you out, and what is a part of it that that you can impact in a positive way?
Well, I think the biggest part that stresses out, and I had this feeling in Cincinnati, I was a tournament director in Cincinnati for 1 year before the USTA sold that, is I'm used to being in the room, right? I'm one of the guys who has an opinion. And there was a moment in Cincinnati as the TD when we had just an extended rain delay. We were going to have a short window to play some matches. We could move the night session over to Grandstand, get the matches played, but then we'd have to refund tickets. And ATP was weighing in, and WTA was weighing in, and our house, and TV, and all these different things. And then we had to make a decision. They all looked at me, and I thought, oh crap! I am used to being one of the guys with an opinion from the back. So I think switching into that seat when there's actually decisions to be made there's a pressure there, but also a level of excitement. But also with the U.S. Open, there's such a strong team. Kirsten Corio, a commercial director, Danny Zausner, who runs the facility. It's such a well-oiled machine. I'm really just a cog in the wheel at this point.
Let me ask you, one of the things I loved about the mixed doubles was the fact that I don't think fans didn't necessarily, it was free, that for the most part fans could come the week before the singles draw started and watch the best players, and it cost $0.00. And then the tournament starts, and at some level I think that the US Open is sort of a victim of its own success, and the market is the market, but for a lot of people it's become really, really expensive, sometimes prohibitively so. As tournament director, have you thought about the sort of balance between the commercial interests and, we don't want to leave money on the table, but also making it more affordable and accessible to New York tennis fans?
Look, that's something that not only I think about, but that our whole team thinks about a lot and is debated. The US Open mixed doubles was super successful, so much so that free content we put on Louis, we could easily charge for that next year. And we had that debate already. And I think our plan is, at this moment, it's not decided yet, but no, we want to continue to offer that content for free. Maybe we'll charge on Ashe like we did last year, but let's keep Louis. We need to keep something that is accessible for the fan to still come and experience the US Open. So it's hard because, like you said, that there is so much demand. And there's times where, the brokers will buy up all the inventory and it becomes almost out of our hands. And that becomes unfortunate that we can't even get the tickets to the actual tennis fan who deserves them. But where we can, we'll continue to try to lean in. And you've got my word that I'll push on that as much as we can.
So it's your second day. By the time people hear this, you will have been officially the tournament director for hours at least. So I'm not going to beat you up today and ask you a whole bunch of stuff, Eric. I always appreciate your transparency. I know that'll continue. We talked on Thursday night, and you told me, and I think you could realize that my instant reaction was one of happiness for you. I think it's a job that you will thrive in. I know you're not scared of a tough conversation. One of the things that I think people need to realize is decisions aren't made in an absolute context, right? So he's talking about the rocket ship that has been the U.S. Open, especially under Stacey's leadership, versus accessibility and how to actually navigate those things. There's not an easy answer or a clear answer in all of those things. Do you anticipate being on kind of the front lines of frustration? And is that something that stresses you out at all? Or it's just, there's going to be a decision. I'm going to kind of just try to take the next right step.
When I got recruited to take this job, the player relations part of my job in 2016, I started, and Gordon Smith was the CEO at the time and kind of offered me the role. And, I asked him the question because at the time, the relations with the US Open and players was not good. And it was a tournament that didn't have great execution of all the player services. There was no one really to talk to when, you had an issue. And he said, I want you to come and be that person. And I asked him the question. I said, but are you going to help me, with budget, with when I have ideas, I want, make sure that I have the opportunity to say yes. I just don't want to be a punching bag. And so he assured me of that. But also there is a component to that job where you are a punching bag, right? Players do come and they are upset about things. And I've tried my best over the past decade I don't go hide in a back office. I'm always out and about. And when there's a horrific traffic jam and everyone's late for their matches and people are pissed, I'll go out there and stand in the garden and sort of take it on the chin. If we made a bad decision on something, and whether it's scheduling or practice, I try to meet it head on. So yes, these decisions that I'll be a part of maybe have more at stake, but I hope that people don't see me as someone that was hiding from the difficult issues for the past decade, because I've done my best to be out on the forefront as much as possible.
I agree with all of that. I don't think that's just lip service at all. And I got to think that most of Tennis Universe would say, even if we don't agree with things, maybe we would prefer it a different way. You're always there. You're always honest. You're always a steady hand. I'm ecstatic for you. Congratulations, condolences, all of the things for this job. You're welcome on absolutely anytime. Open door policy. We get something right. We get something wrong. We need to correct anything. You always have a microphone here to tell us what we need to know. Eric, I'm happy for you. Congratulations, new tournament director of the U.S. Open.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. And thanks for all you guys do.
Cheers, Booty. Can I call him Booty anymore? That's like you can't call him that. Can we Mr. Booty? Mr. Booty?
I think it's going to stick with me.
Officer Booty?
Sir Booty.
Sir Booty. There we go. All right. Thanks, Eric.
No, I appreciate you guys making the time.
Hey,
cheers, bud. Congrats again.